people need to repent and start admitting that when you got Louis over here singing, "Oh, what a wonderful world," and then you got a whole culture of people over here singing, "I'm gonna kill, you're gonna kill, we gonna kill, we all gonna kill." You know, people are gonna, they're gonna say, "Hey, I think I'm a little afraid that I don't know if I trust these people over here. I'm not sure I want to hire them. I'm not sure I feel safe letting them in my restaurant." You know, but Louis, you're welcome. Louis, come on in. You know, that's not racism. I mean, it's not racism. It's that it's the fault now. I'll say of our Democrat media because it's the fault of a lot of things. It's the fault of church folks not speaking up, believers in the Bible and Constitution not speaking up and saying we need to enforce the Ten Commandments. So what the media did though is they promoted groups that love to break "Thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not kill." They love promoting gangs and all that too because they don't like freedom. They want power. I don't know how they don't like freedom and peace. The peaceable sides of the law that come from God's Ten Commandments. I can never figure out why people don't like peace and comfort. I can't figure that out. But then there's other temptations of sin that pleasure is sin is a temptation for anybody in peaceable worlds and all that. You can be tempted by pleasure, but I don't see how people are tempted to. What's fun about killing people and hurting people and stealing from people? There's nothing fun about it. It's just greed, and it's sometimes come from anger a lot. It's not it's not pleasurable, and then you have to wonder if somebody's gonna take revenge when you do those things. I would think. So I don't. People have different issues, but as far as being told, you got to be reminded that those things are wrong when it's so popular today. It's not loving your neighbor. It's not something that's going to be in heaven. So if you're living for that stuff, you're not living for heaven. So why do you think you're going to go to heaven? But first of all, God forgives it through Christ, and anybody can go to heaven. If they trust in Christ. But if you're still doing those things on the regular, I know there's every now and then people can fall and mess up, but or be tempted to mess up. But if you're not convicted about it, not feeling bad about it, then you got to wonder if you're really saved and going to heaven. But people that are doing that on the regular and they don't care that it's hurting people. The bottom line is if you don't care that you're hurting other people by it, you have to question if you have a real belief in God. So no matter how angry you are, you got to get away somewhere else, because if you can escape where you are and get over the anger, sometimes it's almost impossible not to be angry in certain situations or whatever. But we're supposed to learn patience. If you're really stuck and can't get out somewhere, you got to learn patience, and you can't be breaking the neighbor laws. I guess some people will get killed if they don't break the neighbor laws. Love your neighbor laws. If they don't follow along and break them, I don't know how you deal with that, but there's a way to figure it out. You certainly can't be supporting it in your heart. So, but the problem is the Democrats the Democrat media taught people that it's okay to sing songs that break the Ten Commandments. We probably should have laws that are promoting breaking the Ten Commandments, laws against singing songs and things that are promoting to break "Thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not commit adultery." We probably shouldn't have that as a legal song, frankly. So if you want to sing about drinking beer or something, that's debatable. It's not one of the Ten Commandments, but it's debatable because in my opinion, and I'm pretty sure it's a correct assessment of what the Bible says. Beer and medicines are you're allowed to use them according to the Bible. It says not to use them much, not to get drunk much. Be careful about being drunk. It warns about that. If you have a problem with it, it says not to. It advises us not to do it as believers because we don't want to offend somebody else. If we want a higher level of evangelism, if it bothers somebody else, don't even do it because of that. But even though it's not wrong to do it necessarily as a medicine. And that's my interpretation. And all the warnings that it talks about that people misinterpret are just the same thing you put on a medicine bottle. Warning, you can die of overdose from this. You can have a wreck. But it says to be, the Bible also says to be, what's the verse? It says, be not drunk in excess, but be filled with the Spirit. And it says with wine, but I'm going to put all medicines. Wine is a medicine. And so I'm bracketing all herbs and everything into one bracket, medicine, right? So God created medicine forms. We're not supposed to mix them and all that kind of stuff generally as any kind of trick. I will say some of them already mixed, like chocolate has caffeine, but it also has a downer theobromine. Tea has caffeine, but it also has a downer, natural downer in it called theanine. The theanine's more healthy, but I'll tell you, I have side effects to both. And if you do too much chocolate, you feel the side effects of the theobromine, but you more easily feel the side effects of tea by the tannins in the tea, which are good for you in small doses, and then they're bad for you. They attack your bones and joints. If you do too much tea, the tannins do that. So, and then you have the medicine, since it's a medicine in coffee and tea, that cause you to, coffee is a laxative. So I feel the side effects of the dehydration from that. And that's not good. That's okay to use it as a medicine, but not to do it every day. You don't take a laxative every day. That's drying you out in the main part of your body that feeds your body, your intestines. So, anyhow, I got off the subject, sort of, not exactly, but I was talking, I forget where I went with that, but the media has promoted thou shalt not kill. So the subject was the 10 Commandments. Those things aren't in the 10 Commandments. Those are for us to, we're supposed to be allowed to be educated about those things and be educated about those things. And I think God wants us to manage that on our own. So we try to turn that into a criminal thing, but it's a personal responsibility thing. Now it's criminal if you do get drunk and hit somebody with a car. You do get drunk, get behind the wheel. You do get drunk and beat on people and steal from people. If it causes you to do that, then you know you're not supposed to do it. And if you really need medicine, try a different medicine. But also, obviously, abstinence is the best. If you should shoot for abstinence, anybody should that wants to live a better life for their own self. You try to reach for abstinence, but if you really have chemical, physical imbalances such as insomnia and burning in your body or whatever, because from detox and all that, you could take a Tylenol. So it's best to stay off Tylenol as much as possible. But if you need a Tylenol, you could take, if you qualify to take aspirin, if your body will accept aspirin. Anyway, so I'm really just describing that, does it make sense to outlaw songs that talk about killing, promote killing, and stealing? And I hadn't thought too much about it, so I'm not going to make a conclusion here. But I would say, well, why would it be the number one thing you promote? Why would media want to promote those songs more than other songs, and specifically to a specific culture? And they did that. Media, the ones that call everybody racist, they're the ones that promoted the gangster culture. So it wasn't even, I guess maybe there could have been gangs and prior to some of that. For what reason? But I think the gang culture grew when they started promoting the songs, and media did that. So, media could have picked, they did have Whitney Houston. They had a few other good singers, there was a lot of good singers promoted in the 60s particularly, but there was a period of time they started, I just got distracted by a note, but there was a period of time definitely where they were promoting gangster culture and then calling people racist who oppose gangster culture. Gangster culture is not a good culture. So part of it came from taking place of families. You could say it started in an innocent way with some folks. Who knows? I don't know what was the biggest influence. What money and drugs, money that comes from drugs and stuff could have been part of the influence. And then the fact that the laws are crooked in a sense, then because they don't legalize safe forms and all that, and so people have curiosities. But I don't know. I can't figure it out, to be honest. But the bottom line is, you got to admit everything's not about racism. Second of all, when I've recently studied white history, and we were always told to study black history, and come to find out, like 90% of the South did not own slaves. So it's like a lot of people live in the South because it was warm. compared to, in the winter, it's warmer than up north. And they weren't here for slavery and all that. So we've been lied to a lot. And the truth is, in society today, there's no question. That may be changing. I've seen a lot but there's no question from what I've seen that there's way, 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 way more black racists than white racists. Not even close. It's not even close. And they won't even let a person talk and try to get along. They won't do it. So, matter of fact, I might see some that say, "I saw you talking on the video. You're not going to talk now, are you? You're going to see what's going to happen when you talk right here." And I'll say, "Let's see." No, I won't. I try to work that out. I walk away from it. I don't talk. I'm not allowed to talk unless we're going to fight. So what am I fighting for? Why do that when I could talk right here? And people can actually listen to it. Or when I could talk to some people who will listen and talk back and forth. And I don't just have a limited time on video. I don't lose my train of thought because I don't have any questions to remind me, okay, what are they not understanding? What is somebody, where are they not with me on this? And most of the time I'll talk to people and they'll cut me off already, still trying to disprove Christ. They'll cut me off right on that. And so forget being reasonable and getting along and all that. They might skip it and say, but see, we're still getting along. Well, yeah, because I'm being peaceable. Well, no, there's some of the guys I know are peaceable that I've met. But I've run into different cults that they're similar to Judaism, modern Judaism, not the real Judaism, that denies that Jesus was the Messiah. And so, but some of these cults, they're not Judaism, but they're actually saying, we worship the God of the Old Testament. And that's it. These are gangs doing this. We worship the God of the Old Testament, and then they get real mad if you mention Jesus. He's a liar. Jesus is Satan, and he's not. The Bible in the Old Testament says right here, I am the only one and only God. And they're declaring that when Jesus comes declaring to be equal with God, that's a false thing. And they do it to qualify, though, some of the Old Testament laws that allow them to kill people and beat people for sin and stuff like that. And I haven't seen them do that specifically, but I think if you keep challenging them, so they get pretty steamed up and they might do that. Some of the ones I met. And so the one person I've talked to that was around that would be he kind of halfway agrees. He says, well, they make a few good points here. And I said, yeah, if you keep skipping over this verse and this verse, like Isaiah, I forget the chapters, but different chapters in Isaiah where it talks about, for unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. And that's prophecy of Christ. Well, they're saying, but the verses before that don't explain that. But so the sympathizers with that theology, false theology, crooked theology, I don't know. Some of them are acting like they're reasonable to both sides. Sometimes that's a trick, and they're being unreasonable. And but they do seem to, when the other people start to get violent or whatever, some of those seem to think maybe that don't make sense now because they get so violent and angry. Anyhow, but there's a lot of tricks out there, and I do blame the media, but I gotta quit sympathizing with the victims of media's lies, and not stop sympathizing, but I gotta quit over sympathizing. And it's up to me if I'm going to heaven or hell. And the church will say, how dare you say that? It's up to God if you go to heaven or hell. Well, God gave me a choice, and I'm choosing heaven, and I'm trusting him. And, it is up to him in the end that I was sincere in my belief of heaven. If I'm sincere in my belief of heaven and Christ for heaven, and he's my God, if I'm sincere in it, I'm going to heaven according to him, right? So that's it, according to him. So you do have a choice. Everybody has a choice, no matter how many tricks have been played on you by media. You have a choice to choose Christ and step away from some of that, and actually it's more peaceable. But so, there are certain things that our body likes and we're tempted to do. And, I wanted to use this analysis this morning. I may make a video on it, like a 15-second. We wash, so what's the point of cleaning your house? It's just going to get dirty again. What's the point in taking a shower? You're just going to get dirty again. Well, but it makes sense to wash it if you're washing it for Jesus, because and then you're getting up and you're working and you're implementing Jesus in your life during the day, because you're doing it towards something that will never get dirty again. You don't have to clean your house again. It's gonna stay clean once you get to heaven. There is supposedly some work up there. We do like to work when you're working at a pace, when you know what you're doing and it's profitable and you feel good about it. We like to do it that way. And I think that's what we should aim for more times. Or even if you're working a job that you're not loving too much, or it's difficult, you're still happy to, you're still good at being able to say, well, I'm getting paid. I'm getting paid. So I can stick it out. I'm going to be patient. I'm getting paid, and I'm going to get rewarded in the end. And so even that's jobs we can like, but get tiresome sometimes. So, but in heaven, you don't have to do it again. So it is, I'm not saying not to clean your house and not to take a shower, because in the end, it's all worth it. If you've helped live a life that shines God's light on people, the light of truth on people, and you've attracted some more souls to heaven, or you've encouraged some other Christians to keep marching on, in retrospect, you helped them stay encouraged, and they might be the ones that have a gift for winning more souls. So, that's it's not all for the preachers to do. Actually, the preachers are your shepherds of the flock at the church, and they can't be out there doing all this stuff. It's actually the church that's supposed to take what they learned, the church take the encouragement they got, take the love and worship they saw in Christ, and to keep sharing it all over the place throughout the week. So that's for every believer in the church to do, in whatever corner they're in. So whatever skill they have. And so we've gotten that mixed up. And actually the whole reason America came about the way it is now, with the freedom of religion, freedom of speech, and the government that ended up taking over here, with a good side of government that took over, that was for freedom of religion and brought us capitalism, which is good. It was better than slavery, right? Okay, everybody gets paid. So capitalism, and then so we created any system can have vulnerable sides or parts that can, like, you could create a monopoly and that can become bad. So we've made rules even to help alleviate those problems. And then some people are trying to take advantage of it, demonize it, and ruin the system. Doesn't matter. We still got people trying to ruin the system, no matter what the system is. So, but what took over, what we ran from was the Catholic Church saying that only the Pope can read the Bible. And people are actually getting hung if they got caught reading the Bible. They got hung. And so they left there for the freedom of religion and came here. And I would say, I don't know if that's the entire 90%, but the 90% and even 100% in the North almost, and parts of the North, 100% of people where there was no slavery and stuff, they were coming here to settle and try to start a new country, freedom from that religious slavery in a sense. And there was the British government coming here to try to, and different governments in Europe trying to get all the people who escaped and trying to establish their own religion and all that kind of stuff. So, and they brought slavery, mostly the British, the redcoats. And so we fought, me being one who believes in that freedom, I agree with them. And they fought against the British to keep the freedom here, right? So the Indians, they weren't involved in that. They became involved. Some of them, if they were in the South, they were stuck fighting with the South. The Indians in the North, some of them helped the North. So then you had slaves. So, you know what? They talk about the Cherokees. Oh, Cherokees were black. They weren't. They were black Indians and all this. They're trying to say that nowadays. That's not true. The truth is, some slaves escaped and joined the Cherokees. So they were protected by the Indians when they escaped, and they were became part of the Cherokee tribes. So that's what happened. But the Indians weren't black. They were what we see. We've seen them. I mean, we see them in the old movies. That wasn't that long ago. They were real actors in the movies, a lot of the Indians. So, and all the Indians didn't have the same, they didn't look exactly the same, because it is true. There probably were some Indians that came from Africa, because no Indian evolved here in America. They came from overseas. All of them did. So to say that Uh, they were the first ones here. That's true. But everybody came here by a boat. They came by a ship, and the Indians just beat everybody else here. So, but some Indians came probably through Alaska, which would have been kind of Asian. They would have been Asian or Russian even. Maybe they probably mixed, you know. So there were people here that made it over that way. Some people made it from, the Pacific Ocean. Some people made it from the Atlantic Ocean. So you definitely had different types of Indians, that different ethnicities of Indians even. So, um, but a lot of them have a similar look and all that. They had different languages. But so what was my point? My original point was, so we came here. So the churches today are usually going along with the Democrats saying you shouldn't talk religion and politics, and especially if you're religious, especially if you're Christian, you know. But basically, and so what it's turned out, what's happened in churches is they'll tell. Here's a common thing. Well, you're a person that has struggled with addiction or whatever, which is almost it's a fake sin in a way, because God does allow medicine. So the problem with addiction is usually that we don't have the best medicines. First of all, Lortabs aren't the best medicine, by the way, but street medicines aren't the best medicines. But they are made from some of the best plant medicines, but then they're mixed or made too strong, and then you're surrounding yourself by killer dealers and stealer dealers, and that wasn't necessarily a lot of them. That is their plan, to get into that business so they can steal and kill. So that's a lot of their plans now. Some people grew up in it. It's just because there's paranoia with the laws and all that. It just becomes that, right? And it's not whether it's not the dealing group, but the other smokers who are smoker dealers, and they're betraying their gangs and pretending like they're part of this gang, and they're really with both gangs, and they're just doing whatever they can. You got some predators and opportunists all over that, right? So you have, I'm not going to pretend that I know every consequence or domino effect, but the point is you have domino effects. So I can't say what the main cause is, except that I can say the laws are messed up, and that's a problem. The punishment is messed up. The doesn't matter if it's drugs or not or whatever. The main punishment should be, the main people they should go after are people who are killing people and stealing, whether it's in the drug culture or outside of the drug culture. Doesn't matter. That's the main thing they should be focusing on, and that will, the natural balance will resolve some of those things. And so, and if we get too drunk and do something like that and get caught, you can get in trouble too. And then you can't keep going back to that type of medicine if it causes you to do that. You got to figure it out. And then it's, sometimes I've seen that it's hard to, it's easy to blame people who rush. If you're doing the medicines and somebody's rushing you or took what you got, then they gave you something fake, then they gave you something real, and you weren't ready for that real one because you thought it might be fake again, and so it was too strong. And then you acted up afterwards, acted like a fool or whatever. And so you want to blame them for it. And it is partly their fault. So, but you don't believe that the medicine's bad. You think they tricked you with it and stuff, and they messed it up. Well, that some people might have to kill that curiosity at that point, but at some point they got to realize it's just not safe to go through those venues, first of all, and you don't want to. Your life's in danger anytime you take a medicine. I mean, if you take too much, you're making yourself tired, so you don't feel like working. If you're able to work, you're putting yourself at risk. So it's a strange world we've created, just by making laws. So that's conspiracy laws. I would say it's conspiracy. Everybody's not ignorant to it, but most people, believe it or not, I'd say in the Republican Party, they're pretty ignorant to it, and they actually believe the lie that even the cartels want them to believe, that all drugs are of the devil. They're evil. It's all the drugs. No, it isn't. They're just a tool. We know they're strong. And it's good that they're strong. You know why? Sometimes because they use it when they do surgeries on people. They make them strong, and they make them put you to sleep. and you don't feel the surgery, and they save your life. And back in the day before they had those kind of things as down pat like they do now, which is weird that they have that down pat and they can't get this other. They can't get it down pat how to fix the illegal drugs and all that. But so that's why there's definitely conspiracy, but it's also superstition, believing drugs are of the devil. When God created, He created medicine because we have physical bodies that they can help through pain and different things, help you have surgery. So we've extended people's life by using drugs to put them down under the knife. So that so a lot of people jump on me and say this is a promotion of drugs. No, I don't like caffeine. I don't like it setting me back. I mean, I like it and then I don't like it. So I've given into it a few times, and even recently, I didn't do it for 3 weeks. I did some. I thought it's been to 3 weeks. I can do something. I'm like, I don't like how long it set me back, and it's made me hungry, hungry, hungry for sugar. As I recover from coming back off the caffeine, the energy drop. So I don't. So it's made my body acidic, made me crave sugar more. I don't like that. I don't like that. So, and that the other drugs do the same thing. Alcohol does the same thing. Makes you go through an energy, a certain, they give you a certain side of energy in your brain. Each one's different in that way, which is sometimes emotional, sometimes not good. But used as a medicine, a little wine can help somebody sleep. But I still say go with the safe options like tryptophan. Go with tryptophan, and I'm not going to answer that, by the way. But go with tryptophan, which is a natural amino acid comes out of turkey. So I do that, and there's something called 5-HTP. That's a derivative of tryptophan. There's something called, the natural ones. You could get theanine, which comes out of tea. It's an extract from tea to help with insomnia. I suggest all those good things, and the other ones I'm not thinking of right now. But the natural remedies, don't do. I don't like chamomile. That's not quite the same. That's a heavier drug. It's going to make me feel tired the next day. Right? It's not using a natural process. It is an herb for sleep, and some people are allergic to it. Then you got valerian root. To me, those are more of a medicine than natural things that promote your natural melatonin. So, and melatonin, you don't want too much of because you only need it once a week if you do it. Because you don't want to stop your body from producing that hormone. Melatonin is a hormone your body produces. Tryptophan helps you produce your melatonin naturally. Just like, okay. So, so I am going to close this off. But, and that got off the subject, but I'm just showing, everything to hate people and narrow it down to I hate this guy and this guy. Look, I mean, Donald Trump. So people went, they bought into the hate for him, but basically basing off trying to get black people to hate Donald Trump, right? But guess who gave black people the most money, like 100 times? If I had to estimate, I'd say it's about 190 times more than any president in history, than any government entity in history gave specifically to black Americans, colleges, black American businesses. So it just said to define it, black business and black colleges. Now if it was me, I would have been more careful about giving money to black colleges that might be rooted in racism. I would have said, well, that might be a racist college, but give it to this one. They're not racist. It's a black college. Some black colleges are not as racist as other black colleges, right? But at the same time, he's just looking at it like, I guess, we need more black students. We need more college students in the black communities because the Democrats, I'm assuming he's looking at it this way, because the Democrats they just keep recruiting people into gangs and all this and promoting that and promoting things that don't help, right? So I'm not a big college guy myself. I'm into trade schools. I believe in trade schools. But in today's system, colleges do help. But if you're going and having to go in debt, I don't suggest that. I say go part-time and pay it off, pay it little by little. But Donald Trump gave $200 billion, billion. And the other day he was saying, do people know what billion mean? because Biden gave $6 billion to Iran. It was 7. I guess they only withheld $1 billion. Apparently, they did research. They're saying, well, he didn't send it yet. It's on hold. Before they bombed Israel, they helped. They're one of their terror groups. So, but billion is a lot. 200. That's why I say 190 times more than anybody's ever given to Black Americans. Trump did that. He gave the most money ever, no question. There's no question about that. He gave the most money, help to good venues in the Black communities, generally good venues, right? So, where I think college isn't the best venue is that recently they've been teaching, if they teach evolution and that kind of stuff, that's not good. And that's in white colleges. It don't matter where. This evolution is real racism, right? So, but we all came from one. We came from God. We all came from Adam and Eve, right? We all came from Noah's family after the flood, right? So that's the biblical account. That's the true account. It shows the genealogy. They ignore the evidence of floods around the world to promote evolution, which says we're not equally one human race. So, colleges are often not good. But for today's system, it helps people who could sometimes, if you could go to college to get away from your from trouble, or if you're surrounded by people who are causing problems, that's good. So Trump giving $200 billion, $200 billion. Okay, 1 billion equals 100 million. I think it's 100 million equals 1 billion. So if he gave, what he gave was, wait a minute, 100 billion, 200 million, 200 million, 300 million. So you got 900 million. Sorry, 900 million. I can't even think in these terms. I can't think in $100. I'll take that. But so you got $900 million. A million equals a billion, right? So let's say 900 million times 200. Just say that, and that's close to what Trump gave. 900 million times 200. He goes, y'all want it over 10 years spread out, or do you want it now? They say, we want it now. I saw it happen. He goes, y'all want it now? And they say, yeah, we want it now. He goes, you got it. He gave it to whoever it was that's in charge of that. Right then, hopefully whoever was in charge shared it. But it was 900 million. I'm sure Trump wouldn't just give it to, that's the other thing about Trump. I bet he didn't give it to somebody who's just going to take it and run with it. Now, he didn't discuss that with us. I'm still curious about what happened with that. But, so 900 million, let's see, times 2 is a lot, right? Times 2, but it's times 2. It's not times 2. It's not times 3. It's not times 4. It's not times 5. It's not times 6. It's not times 7. It's not times 8. Not times 9. I can't talk. 10. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50 times 900 million. Nope, it wasn't 50. It was 200, 51, 52. I'm not going to count all the way to 200. All right? Times 999 million plus the other million I left off, which equals a billion. Times that. He gave that to Black colleges and Black businesses in America. I assume it was only America, right? So I'm sure it was. And maybe that's why they hate him so much. The Democrats. He helped all those people we're trying to trick. I don't know. I know they hate him for the abortion, but the extra hate might be really for helping Black Americans get away from the gangs that the Democrats created. Might be, So, I mean, you got to remember the Democrats are the party of slavery, and the Republicans forced them by war to quit slavery. And they're not happy about that still. So they've used tricks and lies and all kinds of things. There's a big part of them that are still descendants and want their money back. That's about money. And it's not just that. African slave masters that sold slaves here, I'm not trying to make people mad about you by that's all them for by calling people slaves, because a lot of the slaves were crooks. They were crooks. It's true that maybe they were crooks and murderers. That's why they sold them to us. Some of them, they were sold us. They're crooks and murderers. Oh, thanks. Us, not me. But they sold America, the crooks and murderers, and prisoners of war. So you had a mix. The prisoners of war are noble people, but some of these crooks and murderers, they weren't one-time crooks and murderers. They were some of their worst. And so here's my point. I guess I'm not going to make a full rounded point about that, different points, but my point is some people were glad to come here and get away from slavery in Africa. They thought maybe slavery here would be better, or they'd have a way out at some point. And in some cases, but the truth is, in some cases, if you were working in the White House, you had a pretty good job, frankly. That's the truth. And now people want to beat me up for saying that. And that's the whole reason is they don't want you to know that that's the case. It doesn't mean they were free and they experienced the freedom at the time that everybody wants, but the same people that want to beat me up don't want your freedom. They want you to stay angry and act like everything was all white people and all this. So what's new to me is I thought all Democrats were racist. Now they're always calling Republicans racist, and that's a lie. That's just a straight up lie, because they don't want you, the same people that want to hit me for saying there were some good slave jobs that weren't that, and they had good friendly masters. Some of them, because the fact is, a lot of them, sometimes people bought a slave to let them go free. They say, I'm buying you from them, and now you're free. You're not going to be a slave here. You're free. I mean, tear the papers up. You're free now. So I'm saying that existed to a lot, a lot, not just a little bit. And so, or if they got traded, some times a slave would want to be sold to a better master where they had a better place, a nicer master, and they knew different people, and they're like, please let me be sold to this person, because they didn't abuse people, and they had maybe, it was really if they weren't abusive, more than if they had a nice property with nice quarters to live in, So it's so you get mad if you want about the fact that existed, that where the slaves and their masters actually got along, it existed, whether it was a white slave or a black slave. So we got 300,000 white slaves brought here by Britain. So it wasn't all black slaves. There's 300,000 white slaves. I don't know what year that was, but or if it was how much time, what period of time 300,000 white slaves were brought here. But Britain brought 300,000 white slaves. So, and just talk about it in that term then. So there were some white slaves that got along with their masters because they had pretty friendly masters under the circumstance, right? They just didn't get paid. That's the thing. Now, maybe some of them did, but they, so, I actually can talk about the truth now because I'm talking about white slaves. They probably got paid. They didn't get paid, but they had a place to live. Some of them were probably abused. Yeah. Because we got white people that are abusive to white people, just like black people are abusive to black people. You got families where the parents are abusive, or the child's abusive to the parents. They're abusive, like the bullies in a sense, so never happy or just always angry, stuff like that. So it might not even be specific abuse, but you might work for somebody who's always angry, never happy, can't laugh at a joke, can't do anything. And that exists a lot, and that would exist amongst black slave masters that owned white slaves. And that existed too. So, but for obviously there were more black slaves, but the truth is there was only 10%. That's a lot. That's a lot, but when you compare it to the fact that we act like all white people are racist, all white people are crackers, all that kind of stuff, we say that, but the truth is 90% of them are not descendants, even more, are not descendants of slave masters, because only 90% in the South, only 10% in the South owned slaves. That's 10% of poor people. 3% of rich people in the South owned slaves. And now I made a video the other day. I don't know if I canceled it because I messed it up somehow, but that where I remember making an error kind of. There's when I said that a lot of rich people, it wasn't their fault they had slaves because they were issued slaves. I'm talking about politicians. It wasn't their fault. Like Thomas Jefferson, it was that's the way the government ran. He was probably issued, I'm guessing now, he was probably issued a slavery. He didn't buy a slave, or he wasn't, maybe his office had to or something. But that was part of the system. And he's the one that he ended the system. He outlawed slave imports. He was for ending slavery, but he did have slaves, even though he was for ending it, right? So he had children by slaves. Some people call that racist. What do they try to call it? He's racist because he fell in love with a black woman, or maybe because he cheated on his wife. Anyhow, he had children by her, and he sent for their safety. So I guess it was a big offense that they had children, but for her safety, he sent her overseas and the children. They were sent overseas somewhere safe. But if he was racist, maybe he would have aborted the babies or something. I don't know. But so anyway, I don't guess I can ever dig myself out of this hole, because most people are going to hate no matter what. But what I'm trying to do is give truth, and the best I can, the best I understand the facts. But we don't ever talk facts. We lie and act. Point is, we all lie and act like all crackers own slaves and all this stuff, And the truth is, most of them didn't. Most of them had nothing to do with it. Most of them wanted that slavery to be done with. And that's why it became done with. And it didn't end in Africa. The truth is, a lot of the African people who owned slaves, they were mad at us for ending the slavery because they lost money. So, and then they had to keep their prisoners, their thieves and murderers, and be responsible for them. All they were doing is dumping their thieves and prisoners on us, the America, I mean. But I hate it when I say something like us. I don't mean us like that, but America. They dumped their slaves on America. They're crooks and they're murderers. And they got paid for it, I guess. I don't know. But that's what they did. They didn't want to take care of them in the prisons. So they got to empty their prisons. And so I'm just saying, it's possible that some of them thought, hey, we're going to a better place. They got out of prison. But now for the ones that were prisoners of war, that's different. They also got rid of their prisoners of war. They probably did that for money. Then they still had their own slaves. So the reason there were so many slaves is they had so many. I mean, that's Africa's fault. They had that many slaves because that's their system, I guess. And they just weren't, because maybe a lot of them they've rejected the Bible, perhaps back then. I don't know. And so they had, I would say, tribes and different things that weren't wanting to modernize and live. I don't really know that for sure, but I'm saying they may not have fathers and mothers and families, and that's how the Democrats are trying to make it now. They want orphans everywhere so they can make them slaves to government, to this system. And it's not the same kind of slavery. It's more, you don't even have to work much. You have to you do work. You go out and trick people, and they have people out there telling them who to vote for and all that kind of stuff. That's a job to get out and do that. And so they've tricked them into doing all that. These orphans, mostly, I guess, because they didn't have parents to teach them. They hate families, some of them. But I'm not saying all good parents are going to be good, but it's a better system than having no parents, So, and most parents are going to want to do best by their children. It's just natural. So this kind of slavery they're doing by creating orphans, part of the slavery is now they do sell them into sex slavery and all that too, in some areas. And that's easier to do when it's orphans, So that's why they've purposely talked down men, fathers, But and then they let the gangs go create babies, let the terrorists go make babies, But so it's not. So they're still doing the same thing. That's my point. They're still doing the same thing, And how well planned that is, or it's definitely got to be planned. Because if you're a leader, why do you want to teach fathers not to be responsible? Why do you want to teach mothers they don't need the help of the father of their child to raise their child? Why do you want to do that? If you're the leader, I can see why. If you're an insecure person and you're scared they're going to cheat on you, and you can fall for that stuff. You're scared that you can't trust a man, but you've been taught that by the government media, by Oprah Winfrey and people like that. You can't ever trust a man. That's not true. It isn't true. If you want to talk about white privilege, it's because they had strong marriage and family convictions. So their wealth was built little by little by the family system, because people were able to hold wealth, and we got the freedom here to own our own homes instead of have a rental system. And so people were able to save money. Because of that, led to them having saving money. Then they came up with the insurance system, and then you got all these. What do you got it? I can't remember some of the benefits packages you get with your jobs, and all that. Then we came up with Medicare, Medicaid, and all that. So that come about because of a family system. That's not white privilege. That's anybody can start a family, but we've been tricked out of it. We've let media trick us out of it, right? So, and then they've used, believe it or not, so they've used a lot of women, they have natural beauty, right? So they've used that. They use that in Hollywood to have women teach other women to enjoy not having to hate men and not have a man be over them and all this stuff. Now, there are abusive men out there. There's also abusive women. But, but it can be hard to find a relationship, a good one. So, but give it a try, But, and be the best you can be. Anyhow, I didn't mean to get on a rabbit trail. That's easy to do. And I guess I did it partly because I was trying to dig out of a hole. I can't dig out of a hole if nobody's throwing me a rope, I can't climb out of a hole if nobody's throwing me a rope. And there's some people that are going to keep me in that hole and refuse to throw me a rope and hear why I went down into the hole. And maybe I wanted some water. I wanted to share some water with some people. That's basically it. I'm trying to share some water. If I'm wrong about something and you could call it out, I'm happy to say, okay, maybe that's not accurate. But if I think you're lying and saying, how dare you say that any slave ever enjoyed where they lived? How dare you say that? I'm going to kill you for saying that. Well, they're trying to trick you into hating more people. And they're also not admitting, the main thing they don't want you to hear is that almost 90 to 100% of white people were not slave owners. So when you say 90, I say to 100% because that's what, when I say to 100%, that would be the North. That would count. That actually is accurate to say that, because the people in the North didn't at all. People in the South, it was only about 10%, 10 to 12%. And of the rich people in the South, now, I can't tell you which ones were the worst ones and which ones were the best ones. So that was the system. And it wasn't based on race at the time, but that the ethnicity. But that was what was convenient at the time, because Africa made it convenient and maybe Britain made it convenient. So you can hate all you want and keep hating, but the truth is Britain, even though they brought people over, and Portugal and Spain were the main transporters and mostly transported them to Brazil, not America. Brazil had way more slaves than America. Well, all that happened, Britain was the first to end it. America was working with them. They stopped slave transport. Thomas Jefferson outlawed slave transport around 1807, and Britain ended slavery trade with Africa in 1807. So, and then guess who didn't end it? Africa. They kept doing it. So they didn't even end it for a long time after that. And there's still slavery in Africa, in Nigeria. Specifically Nigeria, Niger. And I forget, I didn't take time to look up other ones because I barely remember those two, to be honest. So, but the fact is, to lie and act like, all crackers that hate on all white people, because in America particularly, for the slavery, and to pretend like the Republican Party's racist when it was the Democrat Party, not the Republican, and to pretend the Republican Party's racist when there's a lot more Christians who are against evolution in the Republican Party than there are in the Democrat Party, who believes in evolution, and mostly believes in evolution, which is racist. You got it backwards. They got you tricked. They've tricked you into hating on the people that are actually workable and who get along with people. And they do base things on work ethic, and that's where it gets hard. Like I said earlier, you got Louis Armstrong singing "What a Wonderful World," and but today you've had somebody singing those kill songs, and then you expect people, you want to call it racist when people don't want to hire you, when you carry yourself that way, in a violent way, and don't control your temper. And it's easy to lose a temper no matter how hard you're trying to do good. That can happen, but you got to learn to control your tempers. I've had to do it. And sometimes, and then it's not about race, though, that people can be hard to get along with. There's some people who are angry all day long, stressed all day long, snappy, or there's people that talk down to you. I've been on plenty of jobs where I've had people talk down to me all day long, like I'm not fast enough or whatever, and I'm probably usually their fastest workers. One of them. I've had people hate me for being the fastest worker. People who I worked with who competed with me, I guess. But so those are selfish things. Those aren't race things. Those aren't ethnic things. Those are people not practicing religion like they should. Their belief, if they believe in Christ, they probably don't believe in Christ. So, but if they believe in Christ, then they're not practicing walking in the Holy Spirit and patience and all those things and loving your neighbor. And they're wrong for that. But you got it. We live in an imperfect world. Some things we have to battle through and just tough it out and quit thinking it's not. And even if it is those things, you still tough it out and you be the peacemaker, right? So that's what I've had to do. And it doesn't work most of the time it doesn't work, but it keeps me alive. And eventually it does work, because when you're gone, then they miss it. And so maybe they get a glimpse of God and they finally realize maybe God does exist. I finally met a nice person. I treated him like crap while he was here. But, we kind of missed that. Anyhow, so, well, what else? I forgot. I hate it when I run out of gas in my brain, but that's what it is. I don't want to take time to remember my next point because it takes too long. All right, I'll just close it out, but I guess I do want to close it out with, because I went back to the beginning of the video, which was different from the end, and I can't remember that point. I'll just let it go. All right.